So we're going to get started for another weekly meeting. We have our usual updates to provide. There have definitely been some updates this past week on quarantine, which we'll get to in a second. And people were just talking about how well things are going on the Cape and Islands for the most part. Yes, we're hearing some stories of issues of a couple local outbreaks due to either the Chatham party that we heard about, or there was another group in Falmouth. But overall, we do feel like things are going well, and certainly from a standpoint of your guests, we have not heard much from the guests running into situations. So that's definitely a good thing. That being said, as we talked about last week, the number one thing that you can do on a weekly basis is just to keep up open the lines of communications with your guests. It's never too much to emphasize again the importance of all the adherence to the guidance from the state, best practices for wearing a mask, physical distancing, social distancing, and so forth. I think a lot of our guests are adhering to that, which is great. We hear a lot about that out in the towns and on the beaches, but again, to me, that's the number one thing, to continue to make sure that everybody in the community is safe and make sure that it's all your guests are safe week after week. So keep up that good work and the communication with your guests and your future guests that are coming later this summer. The biggest update that we had over the past week, I think we talked about how we knew that there was a vote on quarantine, and sure enough, it did come down. So Joan, do you want to get the honors to describe what that is and the common questions? I think Joan has gotten flooded with questions on this. So.
Sure. We didn't think it would come so quickly, and I personally didn't think it would come at all, but it did on Friday, and we notified everyone as soon as possible that afternoon. There have been a number of questions. We just put out a new blog post yesterday with FAQs about this travel order. So I think Beta will perhaps post the in the chat. She will post the link to it so you can see it. But some of the questions we're getting are in terms of what's the homeowner's responsibility? Are they responsible for collecting these forms and enforcing this ruling? The answer is no. What the homeowner is responsible for is notifying their guests who are coming in after August 1st of the ruling. And if they're coming from a state other than those that are exempt, they either need to provide they need to fill out the form, first of all, which is online, and they need to submit that to the government so that they have record of the guests coming. And then they also need to either provide a notification of their documentation of a recent test with negative results taken and within the last 72 hours prior to arrival. And if they can't produce that, but they've taken the test and just haven't gotten the results, they will have to wait until, they can still enter the state, but they'll have to quarantine until they get those results. And that's where it gets complicated. When someone's coming for a week and they don't know when they're going to get the results, it becomes a little difficult. Those are the things they need to do. And as far as the test, people are wondering if that rapid test that is sufficient. You get the results in 15-20 minutes. The answer is no to that, unfortunately. It has to be the molecular test, which, according to our sources, many hospitals provide a test that can produce results in about 48 hours, but not everyone has access to that kind of test. So I think some people are scrambling to decide what to do. And some in the end will decide they just can't do it, and they can't take the risk that they won't get the test back in time. And so they're probably going to ask you, the homeowner, for, you know, what's my, what can you do in terms of refunding. And I think in most cases, homeowners could, if you have enough time, even if you had a week's time, the rentals are going so fast these days that you probably could rebook it to somebody who's coming from one of the exempt states or in state, and perhaps even at full price. So I think that you could probably really luck out in terms of getting someone to fill the slot. And we found that we've put some new listings up, or someone had a cancellation, and within hours it was rebooked. Of course, you'd put an owner special on, you might even post an alert, but homes are scarce, and vacationers are still just madly looking. I have kind of a wait list of people.
Especially for the next few weeks, the weeks of starting this weekend through the first 3 weeks of August. If you wonder where you might stand if you're in this situation, do a search right now for the same number of bedrooms, literally for all of Cape Cod. I think I looked earlier today for a 4-bedroom home on Cape Cod for August 8th. There were about 4 or 5 properties. So you see how slim the numbers are. I do think it'll be scooped up quickly if you're in that situation where you need to rebook one of the weeks in the next few weeks.
The other question people ask is how is this going to be monitored? And I really don't know. It could be spot checked. They could have, police stopping cars with out-of-state license plates. I haven't heard that, but I know other states have done it in the past. I think Rhode Island did it early on, maybe in March and April. I don't know about that. And it's possible that if you have out-of-town guests, out-of-state guests at your home, and there could be neighbors who see a out-of-state license plate and report the people. So there will be some of that going on. But really, your vacationers are on the honor system to do, to follow this ruling. But you're not responsible for enforcing it and, beyond giving them the proper information.
So just to be clear, our responsibility as the homeowner is just to advise them, as you said, Joan. If they get caught, if your neighbor reports them or something, you're not liable in any way, right, Joan? The people who came are the ones that will be held accountable. They would be the ones that would be subject to the fine, not you, unless you hadn't notified them, perhaps. But.
Right, yeah.
And there's excuse me, a question here just on the forms. The travel form that guests are supposed to fill out, it's an online form, so you submit the online form, and I imagine it goes to just a government database of travelers coming into the state, and they would guests should and would likely get a copy of that to hold on to. And
there is if they are caught, or the police or whoever's monitoring this discover that they don't have a test and that they are not quarantining, there could be a $500 fine per day. So that's not a good thing.
In their best interest.
Yeah. That was interesting about Maine.
Yeah.
I think the state of Maine is particularly vigilant.
So, well, if we hear other updates on this ruling or just any sort of enforcement, we'll certainly let you know. But I think there's enough information out there that vacationers should be adhering to this prior to their arrival. They have the capability to do so. It's not easy. It's not, they're really at the mercy of the testing turnaround time. So they can figure out how long it's going to take. If it takes 5 days to get it, then they might have to get the test 3 days in advance, quarantine for 2 days upon arrival. And again, is that acceptable to them in order to take a weeks-long vacation? They should be able to do that. Ideally, the quarantine or the test time frames is going to get back down for most people down to 24, 48 hours, where this becomes something that they can do. So should we move on? And we're happy to, as we open it up for questions, we'll certainly open it up to questions on that.
One more thing. Visitors over the age of 10 must be tested, apparently. And anyone over the age of 18 or over is supposed to fill out this online form, which goes directly to the government. I mean, I don't know what office, but it just is submitted. So those are the 2 details we discovered.
Yeah.
Yes.
All guests, and someone's asking a question, what about guests of guests? Is that what the question is? And I mean, basically, I mean, you have no idea, you may not know who's coming, and that's, again, the responsibility of anybody coming to the state. So,
Yeah, and if one person in the party has to quarantine, they all have to quarantine according to the ruling. I mean, only makes sense. You can't be living in a home with other people and just have a couple of them quarantine and the others out cavorting.
Well, let's move on. And certainly, again, if you have a question on quarantining in a few minutes when we open it up, feel free to ask away. Moving on towards the end of the summer, as we look towards the end of the summer, the last week or so of August, the early Labor Day week, and then into the fall, where everyone's going to start to set their attention on bookings and how to, if you have those weeks open, or if you're looking for fall rentals, how to increase your fall rentals, which we do think will increase this year for folks just like in the spring that are looking to get away. One important note is that the Massachusetts Department of Education just announced yesterday that the public schools can be delayed by 10 days. So that's pushing the start of the school from early September to all the way up to September 16th is when they have to start by. So that automatically just increased the audience, the guest pool, that for people that now the end of August is not going to interfere with school. Labor Day week's is likely not going to interfere with school. So I expect those weeks, if you still have that week available, we'll start to see more interest in the next couple weeks as we get into August. Joan, what did you want to add regarding tips for the fall, or things to consider?
We are seeing more and more people who are interested in long-term, and you should be prepared for questions like that. There are a lot of differences between a short-term and a longer-term rental, and you really have to do due diligence to be sure that you are having somebody in your home who is going to be a good guest and will leave on time. That can become an issue, and you need to, there's so many things that you need to do in order to get the information that you need. You should meet them ahead of time. You should, check all their references, call their references, and make sure you have an ironclad lease. And I've also seen some college students who are not going back to school for at least the first semester, and they would like to, a group of them would like to rent a home. I've seen this several times, so you can expect that. And some people will say, absolutely not. I don't want college students in my home. Others may not mind, but there could be some ramifications here that you have to consider. But just remember, you're in charge. You're the decision maker, and you get to decide who is in your home. And it's an important decision when you're considering a long-term rental. There was someone last week who called and said that she was having trouble with a renter who was in her home for March and April, and then extended it into May, which she was okay about because there was a ban on short-term rentals anyway. And then he decided he needed to stay through the summer. Although they didn't sign another lease, because she was accepting his rent and all he could afford, he said, was the off-season rent, he has become a tenant at will, and she can't get him to leave. So she thinks he's there, for the rest of the summer. And what she normally charges twice what he's paying for a month for a given week in the summer. So that's a huge financial loss to her. So, you really have to know your guests and why they're there and how long they'll be there, and just be careful.
Okay. The last topic that we wanted to cover today, and then opening it up to the audience here for questions, is a topic on a third-party site that many of you have seen, HomeToGo. And we've announced our partnership with this site, HomeToGo, back in December, I believe, is when we started this partnership. And to give a little background on what it is and reiterate kind of the benefits of a partner site like HomeToGo. What HomeToGo is, it's an aggregator site. It's a site that takes vacation rental listings from various sources. You will see our competitors on there, and now you'll see our listings. And it's a benefit to those travelers that want to search by those means. They can now search a larger inventory across multiple sites rather than searching the sites individually. They can compare pricing and so forth. The benefit to us on a site like HomeToGo is that we do not charge booking fees, and therefore oftentimes that is showcased. When you see the properties, our property will be shown over the same property from another site because we have the lowest offering or the lowest price without the additional booking fee that's on top of it. This is something that's not new to our site or our strategy for marketing, even though the names have changed over the years. I think we've been partnering with an aggregator site for the last 10 years or so. We partnered with Dwellable, a site called Dwellable, about 7 years ago. I think it lasted for a few years, and it was bought out by Homeowner at one point. We then partnered with a site called Tripping. Tripping then got bought out by HomeToGo. So we've been providing our inventory to these sites in order to increase our exposure, and it does do a great job at doing just that. We don't have the nationwide marketing budget. We're not about to launch a national TV campaign, but these sites, because they are global sites, HomeToGo is a global site. It's based in Europe and Germany, and it gets plenty of traffic from overseas, and it does get a lot of local traffic here too, but also traffic from not just the Northeast, but it's a way for us to reach an audience, even greater audience beyond kind of our primary marketing region of the Northeast and Canada and so forth. So we have seen an increase in activity over the past couple months. They have been, what you'll see is if you get an inquiry from your HomeToGo listing, it does come through it looks just the same as an inquiry. What it does is it gets sent to us and gets entered into our database. So if you log into your homeowner account, you'll see it in your inquiry history with a reference to it was via the HomeToGo platform. You'll also receive the same inquiry and text messaging and emails and text messaging, and it'll include a reference in there so that you know it came from HomeToGo. There are a couple limitations with this interface in that we're providing our inventory over to them on a nightly basis. The updates get applied. Did they get generated? We send them over on a nightly basis. It probably takes 24 to 48 hours at most to update their inventory. So what we've observed, especially during this time period where there's an increased activity, is that sometimes somebody might book a week. You book next week on your calendar, and then all of a sudden you get another inquiry from HomeToGo because it's still open there. It's open there for another, again, 24 to 48 hours. It's one of the limitations. We're working to see if there's other opportunities to try to reduce that delay. The other what was the other limitation?
The price.
The pricing, we've sent across both your price and included the tax. So it should include your price that's displayed should be the price of your base rate and the tax included, but it does not include additional fees. If you have pet fees, linen fees, cleaning fees, those additional fees that are currently on your listing in the other price section is not standardized in a standardized format for us to send over. So those are separate. A recommendation there at this point is you could enter those at the bottom of your property description, so at least they become part of the HomeToGo listing, but also upon responding to any vacationer who inquires is clarifying that fact, clarify that here are the additional fees that go on top of the price that they saw on HomeToGo, and oftentimes some of those additional fees might be optional. A pet fee might be optional, so clarify it that way. What daily? The rates. I do believe the rates on HomeToGo are, even though somebody might be searching for a weekly rate, what you'll see, if you find your property, and I advise you to go onto HomeToGo and find your property, and you can take a look at it, it'll be expressed as a daily rate. So that might jump out initially as inconsistent, but it is a daily rate, your equivalent daily rate for your weekly rate on the We Need a Vacation site.
Yeah, minor detail, but some homeowners have expressed concern over the bed configuration because being an international site, apparently in Europe, they don't know they don't do king size and queen size. So a large double, I think, is what they call a queen or a king. So, you just have to explain to the renter, the inquirer, that, your listing on our site is the definitive word on the details of your home. And, you just have to understand that it's not it's not perfect, but it sure does bring us a lot of inquiries. And once a vacationer finds a home on our site via HomeToGo, they tend to come back year after year. So we are acquiring just, thousands and thousands of new vacationers who would not have heard about us if it weren't for this international site. So along with a few negative things, there's much more that's positive about this relationship with them.
Right. So, and again, we'll be continuing to work with HomeToGo on that coordination, on the integration of the properties to iron out some of these inconsistencies, like the bedding that you noticed and the pricing. I think we will be looking at standardizing that so we can get any sort of additional fees incorporated into the rate. That seems only fair to do. So, okay, with that, I think those are the main topics that we wanted to cover. So I'm going to open it up to questions. If you haven't done this before, we can't see everybody on these tiny squares. So we do ask you to virtually raise your hands using the raise hand option, which if you look at the icons at the bottom, you can look at participants and you'll see a raise hand option on the participants screen. So I'm going to get started calling on Cynthia is up first here. Cynthia, are you there?
Yes, I am. I didn't know I raised my hand.
Oh, well, you did. Welcome
Okay.
back.
Thank you. Well, on this HomeToGo, first question, where are they based out of?
They're based out of Germany.
Okay, because I did get an inquiry. I responded, but I never got anything back, which is normal. They get a lot of inquiries. So I was just curious where they're based out of.
Sure. Yeah, no, they're based out of Germany. Like I said, they're international site, and I think in terms of not hearing back, I like as much as I want to say every We Need a Vacation vacationer is going to respond, you know, it's the nature of vacationers, are, especially now at the last minute, people are sending a lot of inquiries.
Yes, they are.
If it doesn't meet their needs, you know, unfortunately, a lot of them just drop the ball and don't continue the conversation.
That's fine. Okay, thank you.
All right, sure. All right, Ken, you're up next. Unmute. I think you can unmute on your end as well. There we go.
There you go. How's that?
All right.
First, let me thank you both, Jeff and Joan, for the leadership that you're providing for the community. It is just, I've heard everybody else say it. I haven't had a chance to personally thank you, but this is my first year doing this, and I don't think I could have done it without you. So thank you so much. With the new governor's order, I've had one guest ask for a refund because part of their party was coming in from Denver. The other part of the party was coming in from a acceptable state. And I was able to rebook very quickly, as you suggested. It was painless, but I did lower the cost, the price a little bit. And so I was prepared to give them their deposit back with just that difference, which was about half of their deposit. And I was wondering what, and they were surprised at that. They thought they should get all of their refund, all of their deposit back. And despite the fact that part of their party could still come, and they decided not to get trip insurance themselves and all the things I told them in the standard rental agreement they should probably be doing.
Mhm.
I'm curious what other people's experiences have been with, if they've had a similar experience, and how they're handling it.
It's such a dilemma. I'm sort of faced with the same thing. I have some guests who are coming from, where is it, Illinois, and they have family coming from three different states. So they're scrambling to see what to do, and they asked me what I would do, and I think I could rebook it. I might, like you, have to reduce the price a little bit, maybe not, but I'm just torn. This is a renter who's come once before, and you know, I think in goodwill gesture and under these circumstances, I probably will return the whole thing, even if I have to reduce the price a little bit. But it's an individual call. It's just really hard to know what to do. I think you just have to look at all the details of the guests and how quickly they let you know, and use your best judgment. It's not wrong to do what you did. It's just a very individual decision. But if they're a little annoyed, they probably won't come back to you again, you know, to rent your home, and you might be okay with that.
Yeah.
You know? So.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Sure, thanks, Ken. All right, Elaine, got you up next.
Am I unmuted?
Yes,
Yeah,
you are. Hi.
Okay, great. Hi. First of all, again, I want to, what Ken said, absolutely, you guys have been great, instrumental leaders, and as a homeowner, I truly appreciate it. We were fortunate to have a long-term renter who's leaving on August the 1st, and I've got 2 short-term renters coming in. They're both returners, and both parties are from the Northeast states that are exempt. What are the obligations to inform them about this, and how it's, you know, what are the obligations to inform people that are from exempt states? Is it necessary? Do we have, what is your understanding?
They're exempt, totally. So there's nothing to inform them about, really. What state are they from?
We have 1 New York State and 1 Massachusetts.
Yeah.
So it doesn't get better than that.
Yeah, so they don't have to do anything, fortunately.
Yeah.
But do I have to tell them there's this quarantine? You may hear about this quarantine. I mean, what do I do?
Well, I suppose you could tell them, just so, because not all people in Massachusetts, they may come to your home with New York plates and neighbors could say something, but
Well, New York is exempt, so yeah, that's good.
they should know that, yes. But
And I have New York plates, by the way. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't hurt to say you are exempt from quarantining.
Got it.
Perfect. Just to make sure that there is no confusion that they think all out-of-state guests, those from New York, might be, if they question it, just clarify it with them. So again, maybe in that communication prior to their arrival.
Excellent. Thanks very much.
You bet. The other thing that we've heard, thanks, Elaine. The other thing that we've heard is that the current states that are exempt, the Northeast, New York, basically New England, New York, New Jersey, those could change. So over the next couple weeks, those may change. And might some states be added to it? I don't know what the likelihood is. But some additional, hopefully that we don't see a further restriction on any states, but it's possible that another state gets added to that, which might help your end of summer guests. The other thing that we haven't talked about is how long is this going for? And I don't know if we know. This is right now. This is really indefinite until they get updates. The state continues to watch the numbers around the country. So this could roll into not just your summer guests, but into the fall. But
one thing we didn't mention was that this is being used as a deterrent. I think the governor and our legislators are all hoping that some people will decide not to come. They know that it's going to be impossible to enforce, but if they could get 10, 15, 20% of people to decide to postpone their vacation and come at a later time, I think that's what it's designed to do. It's not perfect, but I think that they do want to try to reduce the chances of people gathering and bringing the virus here. So it's one way to do it.
All right, next up, Don, let's unmute you. There you go. You know how to unmute yourself. You're good.
Thanks, Jim. So I got two things, actually. So one, Ken was asking some really good questions about the cancellation piece. I thought I'd share my experience on that. And then I have a question for you guys on one of the other topics you brought up, which was cool, on HomeToGo. So the first one, they're on the cancellation. So I've been doing this for 16, I think I'm on my 16th year with WeNeedaVacation and, having all the successes and stuff. So it's good. And I have 3 houses. And so I hate cancellations. I have a very strict cancellation policy. It's in my lease. And people, they can read it up front. I rarely get any problems with it. And basically what it says is, I'm committing to you. I'm taking it off the market. You leave me with a last minute, gap in my schedule, and I've committed to you all this time. That's not really fair. So if I can rebook it, I will give you the difference. I'll give it back the money. And also then I'll also say, but if it's less, then I'll give you less. And, again, so there's no expectations of anything different at the time of booking. This year, the wheels came completely off the bus. And I've had, at the beginning of the year, I don't know how many what was, but I had at least 10 different bookings that had to either move around or get canceled or whatever. And I treated them all a little bit differently. Some I just said, I tried to move them around. I tried to help. And I just said, you know what? I'm just going to give you your money back. This is just too much of a hassle. And I gave people money back. Some I pushed into 2021. And so I've already got a half book schedule for 2021 already. I thought that was going to be a disaster until then I rebooked the entire 2020. So now I've got a little bit of next year in this. So that worked out okay. I guess what I would just say is about the cancellation piece is just what I found that works is be quite strict and just get people to understand that, hey, I'm committing to you. So if you don't, you can't just leave me high and dry because it's hard to book a house last minute. Although in this environment, it's not as difficult, to your point, because I had one actually a couple of weeks ago, and I rebooked it in a half an hour. I put the special up on the site. I did paid the $30 or whatever it was, and I'm still getting calls from it. So anyway, that would be my advice on that piece. my question around HomeToGo is that this is pretty interesting because I've actually used it as a traveler, HomeToGo, and I found it pretty cool. It's not quite a channel manager because all it does is it just aggregates from you guys and Airbnb and everybody else, which makes me, I'm really interested in the future of this. I don't know if you guys are studying it that closely. Obviously you like it and it's good for We Need a Vacation. I'm kind of excited about it because the idea is like I have HomeAway too, as you guys know. I can't stand them, and I've even used Airbnb, and I can't stand. It would be great to just say I only need access to We Need a Vacation, and then HomeToGo is going to get me to the rest of the travelers in the world, and then I don't have to have all these other ridiculous sites that are dragging me down. But I wonder how fast it's growing and how is it really gonna, you guys see this as the future of vacation is there much talk about this like being the next big thing, or is it just a thing and we're just seeing how it goes?
HomeToGo's raised quite a bit of money. I think, like I was saying, there have been these aggregator sites that have been out there. So they've been purchased before. So you have both ends. You got Dwellable that we used a while ago, and they got purchased by HomeAway. Then we started using Tripping, and they bottomed out, and HomeToGo purchased them basically at the bottom. So in terms of how they get there, I mean, I think it's a great service, and I see it continuing to be here. I think HomeToGo is probably in competition with somebody like Google, because you go on Google, and Google's trying to figure out how to do their sort of algorithm to capture this information. So I think there's a lot of competitors in the market here. Like we said, we're going to continue to use it for our marketing advantage. I think we treat it as that. It's not free for us. We pay for this service. We pay per inquiry. So it's just like we pay for additional marketing on Google, whether it's PPC, we're paying, we're using this as our marketing opportunity. So we're going to continue to monitor to see, where it goes, but it's a place, it's a necessary marketing tool for us to use.
Maybe it'll contribute to the demise of the big box sites, which would be great.
That would be great. Leave all the personal direct booking sites.
Okay with me.
Yes. Great.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see what happens. Does that answer your question, Don?
That's it. Great. It's good. It's good conversation. It'd be good one to keep our eyes on because it's certainly interesting. And if we're getting leads from it and whatever, that's good. But to the extent that it lessens our dependency on it and having to have any other sites, that's a really big benefit.
Yeah. Well, we'll keep monitoring it, and we'll certainly be in touch. Thanks, Don. All right, moving on to Alice. You're up next.
Hi.
Anyone else waiting? Hi, Alice.
You actually answered one of the questions, which was, is it possible the exempt states could change from what they are right now? And so I'll just comment on the issue of what to do when someone cancels. And our policy is that these are very special circumstances. So we're definitely going to be less restrictive than we would be in an ordinary summer. And I think the recommendation of a week's notice, if somebody can give me a week's notice, then I would give them their deposit back. And I'm not going to, maybe then I won't make quite as much on the next booking, but for this summer, we're going to let that go.
And if you do employ a cancellation policy like that, if you have something that's not strict and you are willing to give their money back up to a week's notice, definitely I would put that on your listing, and because that gives somebody a little incentive knowing I can book now, and if something happens, the quarantine states change or something even more stricter changes, I know at least I can get out within reason or within that time frame.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Get a cancellation for virtually any time in August. Try to just put it up at the regular price. You may not need to reduce the price in this market. It is just so hot. So, I'd put your regular price. I'm sorry, Ken, that's too late for you, I guess. But
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And like I said, it's a little bit early to really see the impact of the delay of the schools and when that last week of August and the Labor Day week will book. That's where we do see a little more availability than, we're not below 10% like all the other weeks of the summer. So the last week of August, I didn't rerun the numbers, but we were sitting, somewhere in the 30% availability range for that last week of August, the last I checked. So that's going to be a little more competitive. So we'll see how that shapes up.
I don't know that anybody's asked this question, but what would you think about people taking another look at their calendar for the end of August? Normally, our recommendation is to tier your prices so at the end of August, when there's so much availability, you would have lower prices. But this year is not a normal year, and I just wonder, whether some people could perhaps make up for some of the losses in early June when you couldn't rent, and maybe increase your price a little bit for the end of August, beginning of September weeks, and see what happens. You can always lower it, but
Yeah, I would do a search for your similar properties to you to see where you stand. Where do you stand amongst similar bedroom size properties on the Cape or the islands, wherever you are? Just see where you are competitive wise, and if there is some wiggle room for you on price, you may be able to. Certainly, we'll keep everyone up to date as we monitor kind of the traffic and the trends for the end of August and the beginning of September to see how that changes. Any other questions, please do raise your hand and we'll get to you.
I have something
Joan
I want
has a
to
question.
say. It's about bugs, and I don't mean the computer type bugs. I mean the real bugs crawling. We've gotten a number of complaints from vacationers who are saying that they found, number of ants and spiders and it happens every year, but it seems more so this summer, and maybe it's the heat, and I don't know, but one tenant went around collecting the ants, put them in the bottom of a Dixie cup, and is demanding money back, and so we're trying to help the owner deal with that situation, but it may happen to you. And we've always said that it's a great idea to have a pest control person, what's it called? Just an exterminator. They deal with insects, yeah. Because then you can just say to your tenants, we do have somebody, and we'll send them back in, or we'll do whatever steps you need to take. But it gives you a little bit of the ability to say, we're on top of it. We do, there are bugs on the Cape, and sometimes it's just inevitable. We've also had problems with people complaining about what they called roaches, and this has been something that we've heard for years and years. And they're not, as far as we know, there are not cockroaches on the Cape. There is something called a wood roach. It looks like a cockroach. It's not even in the same family, but it has the same name. And it doesn't want to be in the house. It's harmless. It gets in when people are opening and closing doors and coming and going and entering the home with their suitcases and stuff, and it's attracted to light. So we've had a number of people complain about that, and to both us and their homeowner. But I have some information. If you ever get a complaint about that, right from I guess the Barnstable Horticultural something or other, but it's very official information about the wood roach, which should, I think in most cases, assuage the the reaction of horror on the part of
Yeah.
guests.
Well, there's always there's some things you can't avoid. I think every year you hear one of the complaints about bugs is talking about a cobweb up in the corner. I mean, I guarantee that of thousands of homes, you're going to have some cobwebs that are missed up in a corner. I mean, if that's what the vacationer is complaining about, obviously you have to deal with the guests and any concerns they have, but also something like that, they got to move on with it. I think some of the situations are caused by the fact that what you have this year is you have a lot of guests that are coming and staying in rentals for the first time. These guests may have been staying at resorts or hotels before. This is their first time they're venturing into a rental, and you don't deal with bugs when you're staying in a hotel as much, unless, for the most part. But here you're dealing with a house, and what comes for anybody with home ownership, or and when you're now renting a home, is you're dealing with a house, and so this comes with part of the territory. As a homeowner, as Joan said, it's your job to ensure that make your home covered, and use a pest control as needed.
I have one. It's a funny story, but it's really kind of sad because the poor homeowner paid the consequences. But it was a homeowner who was renting his home for the very first time, and his very first guest called a couple of days into their stay to say that it was raining spiders in the house, and that there were nests in the ceiling, and that spiders were falling all over the place and on their heads, and they were taking to wearing baseball caps so that they wouldn't get spiders in their hair, and their son found a spider on his toothbrush, and the owner, a poor owner, sent in pest control guys who really, maybe he found one or two spiders, that was about it. And it was kind of a trumped up story. And in the end, the vacationer, the homeowner, refunded half the rent. And, it's a real shame that it came to that. And we tried to work with the homeowner and talk to the renter, but those things can happen, and it's a situation that sooner or later some people will deal with. But after that, happily, all of his guests were happy, and no one ever saw another spider the rest of the summer.
Tough start.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions from this group? Any other stories that you want to tell us about or share with the rest of the group? Happy to hear any sort of feedback. Cynthia, you got one? I actually can't see. I can't see everybody, but Cynthia, your hand's there. Hold on. Can you unmute yourself? There you are. I think you're back. There you go.
Okay. I have a renter up there now in my house. She texted me and said that the cap that's on the battery for the igniter for the grill was not there. So you can't push the button. You press the igniter, it doesn't go on. So she looked all over the place. She could not find the cap. So long story short, I did have some matches in the house, long ones. She says, no worries, I could start the grill. Mm-hmm. So I'm not going to be up there until like the middle of September. So my husband and I, we have the same identical grill. We FedEx the cap from my grill to her, and she should get it today. Now, my question is, the renter that was there prior to her, she didn't say anything about, oh, the grill doesn't work. So I'm wondering if they accidentally maybe took my cap. So I don't know if I should say something to them or just let it go.
Personally, Cynthia, I would let it go. It's just too hard to know, and I think it would just create ill will, and
okay.
They could be very defensive, and suddenly think of things about your house that they didn't like and write a review.
Right.
So I think I would just let it go.
Well, that's what my husband said.
Yeah.
You could, I mean, when do you ask the question of when you follow up, that you know they had a nice stay and you just follow up for a review, but you also solicit, oftentimes people solicit feedback. Was there anything that was not working? I mean, oftentimes people don't want
Good
to
idea.
review with minor things, and they just think, oh, this thing, who knows, maybe it was missing from the previous tenant, or they think it was already missing and it wasn't their fault. They may not mention it.
Gotcha.
If
That's
there's
a good
someone-
idea.
Yeah,
I'll do that.
solicit some
Yeah.
feedback somehow.
Yeah, you could just say, the current renter can't find the cap. Were you able to start the grill, and was it there, or maybe it was.
Good. Yeah. So it's a little. This is the first time we had something like that. So
Yeah.
and luckily I left little things out, and I did have some long stick matches with some Centranola candles.
Mm-hmm.
So thank goodness they were able to use the stick matches to start the grill. But I'm saying, where's the cap? That cap does not fall off. It
Well,
screws in.
You were very responsive and responsible, so that's terrific.
Okay. Thank you.
You're
Thanks,
welcome.
Sophia.
Anybody else?
I have a quick
Yes.
question.
Sure, Elaine.
It's Elaine. Hi. I've gotten requests for next year already, and I've already sold 2 weeks, which
Uh-huh.
is great. What is your feeling about rates for next year? I haven't gone up in 3 years,
Mm.
and this year I kept it the same because of everything. So, do you think I should increase a bit?
Yeah, I would at this early date. I would think you should feel comfortable if you haven't raised it in 3 years. Have your expenses gone up in 3 years?
Oh my God, this year especially for chemicals and oh my
Right.
God.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would do that, and you can always, if you have somebody who you really like as a tenant and they want to come back, perhaps you could offer them this year's price. But for new people, they don't. I think
No.
I think it's perfectly fine to raise your rate on the calendar, and later on, if you find that you have some remaining weeks or it's just not renting, then you can reduce it. But I would increase it.
Good, thanks.
Can I just add something there?
Sure,
Yeah.
go ahead,
Just
Dana.
add some- I would just say, first of all, the obvious thing, but some people forget, if any of you do make an exception for any of your repeat tenants or anybody, just make sure they understand that you do have a new rate, right? Sometimes people just give them the old rate and don't mention it. So you want to leverage that goodwill, right? That you've protected the old rate. The other thing is, Joan sort of hinted at, is that you can always go down, but certainly given the frenzy that we're seeing this year, there are a lot of folks who were not able to even come because there was so little inventory. So we don't know, we don't have a crystal ball. We don't know any better than you guys do what next year is going to be like. But the guess is, I mean, the way things are looking from this year, it's going to be another strong year next year. By then there'll be 2 years with this lodging tax. Vacationers will be more used to paying that. It'll just be every day. So yeah, I would agree with Joan. I think, yeah, and it like every year, it depends on how you did this year. If you still struggled at all this year, that's kind of not a good sign that you should raise them. But I think most of us probably got more inquiries than we knew what to do with. If that's the case, at least this early in the booking season, be as aggressive as you think you can get away with. And if it doesn't work by December, January, then you can always bring them down and put up an alert, not an alert, an owner special mentioning that you've lowered your rates.
Thank you.
Yeah, the prospects of what does next year look like, as Beta said, like to be determined, just kind of what the state of the pandemic is. Even if people are, I can't, it's hard to believe that people are going to be freely traveling, to next summer. I mean, I think there's still the issues surrounding the pandemic. There, the vaccine and all the things that are going to change greatly over the next few months into the next year. So it's likely going to be another strong year for folks that are just staying local again. So the increase of guests is likely, there's probably going to be a large group of guests looking for rentals again. I would bet. Let me grab a couple more people before we end. Jane, you're up hear Jane and Barbara after that.
I had about 5 cancellations, and 4 of them left their deposits with me for next year. So I think raising my rates and telling them I didn't for them is goodwill.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely let them, you get the boost,
Yeah.
let them know that you did
Yeah.
not raise it for them.
Yeah.
You get a little
When we
bonus.
talked about it, I said, of course, next year there'll be COVID fees and more, I'll be paying more for cleaning, but this way you stay at the
Yeah.
2020 rate.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yep. Good way to handle it.
Thanks for that input, Jane. And last up for today, Barbara.
Can you hear me?
Yes, again.
Oh, okay. I was also wondering about raising my rates because the cleaning cost me a lot more. And I've always included cleaning in my basic price. And I was just wondering from something somebody just said that if I don't raise my rates, but then I say I'm going to be charging for cleaning, does that mean that that would not be taxed, so that the tax would stay the same? Because right now, my tenants are actually paying tax on the cleaning.
Well,
Does that make sense?
regardless of whether you incorporate the cleaning fees in your rent or have a separate cleaning fee, it's taxed.
Oh, it is taxed.
Yes, any extra fees are taxed. So the bottom line taxes are not affected. But, you know, the way we've always seen it is that if you charge an additional fee for cleaning, that's one more thing on top of the rent and then on top of the tax. So it just makes your initial rent that they see on your calendar look, oh, wow, I thought it was only X, and now it's, you know, it's $1,000 more or $800 more or something, depending on your rent. So, and in addition, if you charge extra for cleaning, there's a mindset, and vacationers are less likely to really do a great job of cleaning your home before they leave, because they're thinking to themselves, well, I'm paying for this place to be cleaned, so I'm just going to leave it this way. Whereas if there's not an extra fee, they are not of that mindset, and I think they're more likely to take good care of it. But I mean, you can handle it however you'd like. There are plenty of people who do charge an extra cleaning fee, but we all have always maintained the theory that it's probably not a bad idea to incorporate that, and now more than ever with the tax added on, and you know, it's taxable anyway, no matter how you cut it. So
Okay, well, I've always done it that way. I mean, this is my 28th year. I've always had it as one thing, but I was just thinking that maybe it because of the tax, but as long as it's taxed anyway, it doesn't matter at all.
right, exactly.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. All right, I think we're going to wrap up for today. We'll be back at it again next week. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Joan, anything to add?
Have a good week. Looks to be another rainless for the most part. Great beach days. So hope your guests are happy and relaxed. And you too.
Yes. All right.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.